Hey, good morning. Out here in the shop, it's rainy outside again today. Kind of keeps me inside and out of trouble, I suppose. But the little dog doesn't like it. She likes to go out and walk in the sun. Well, I'm still on this Axelson here, and I've got the needed bearings for the carriage. Hopefully they'll be in today or tomorrow, all of it, and I get that together. But in the meantime, I'm checking out some other things. And a very early video I did, I told kind of an off-color joke from Rodney Dangerfield. But I better not get into that, I might get banned, huh? But I took into I had the Cushman four-jaw chuck and the spindle here, and I had an indicator on it, and I pushed it over, and I deflected it, I don't know, a thousandths or a half thousandths like that. I was just kind of checking the condition of the spindle bearings. And the Axelson is kind of like some followed some other lathes, and some Monarchs and Hindis. The Launch and Shipley Power Turn had this too, and that's two sets of Type 0 Timken spindle bearings. Now, it's got a set in the nose here that are, I don't know, a few inches apart here. And they're big diameter ones too, like in the Reed Prentice lathe. Then there's a set in the back, and that set floats from heat expansion. It's allowed to float, and its adjustment is right here. And this is an older machine. I can step right up on this machine here. And they made the adjustments easier to adjust the spindle bearings. Now, later on, they changed that, and they kind of hid the nut back in there to adjust it because they didn't want people monkeying with this thing. And you got to be careful adjusting spindle bearings. And so this is an older style, and I was surprised to find this because in the manual that's online is for a 1950s machine, and this one's 1941. So they did things a little more simply. Now, with the two pair of Timken bearings that are in this, it has a 29,000 pound, as I remember, axial load, and or radial load, and then 11,000 pounds axial load. So many lathes just will have two Timken bearings, and that doesn't make them bad lathes at all. It just has a reduced load that you'll probably never use anyway. And it costs quite a bit more to use two pairs of bearings. So this is a 1,000th indicator here. Let me get it on a number, even 0 or something. Right there, okay. And I got a hammer through the back of the spindle, and I'm going to pull up on it. Let's see how much I can deflect it. It looks to me about 1,000th and a half. Maybe 2,000ths. Now that's way too much. And that's causing these bearings, even though I believe these bearings are just right. They warm up the casting, running it at 800 for a while. I think they're great. But it's these, and this is pretty typical, the back ones here need adjustment. And let's see, I got a piece of steel here, and I don't know if we can see it. I cut this piece of steel, and it's got a good looking finish, but if you look real close, there should be more distinct lines from the cutter. and it kind of smeared it over because things are wobbling just a little bit. That's just my opinion and observation from using a lot of machines. I knew that the spindle bearings needed adjustment when I first had it in the driveway, and I made that early video. And now I'm chasing it down, making some cuts, and from what I'm seeing here, I go, oh, that rear spindle bearing is out of adjustment. And you can see that it is with the deflection here. So I'm kind of into the back in-gearing here. And I want to make sure everything is oiling okay. You know, here's a ball oiler here, there's one here, there's one here. And I'll tell you, I was looking in that newer manual, and it says, and the lightweight aluminum in cover makes getting to the in train easy. And this is not the lightweight aluminum in cover. It's cast iron, and it is really, really heavy. You have to like use a screwdriver to get it on and off and slide it onto these things. It's quite a deal, but once you figure it out, you know. But yeah, this is an earlier machine, and being in 1941, and they just didn't make very many. They just made a few more than 200 in 1941 of all their models. And I don't know how many of these they probably made, because most of the lathes you see are quite large. So I don't know. I've heard it said that these are salesman samples. But I want to see what I can do with the accuracy of rotation. I've done some checks with it. It's like over 100 millionths error. So this will take care of that, I believe. To get to the front bearings, the headstock cover has to be removed. And, you know, I'm going to end up in there and probably doing something with the noisily couplers and stuff like that, because other people have been in there. I see the blue silicone and the black Permatex Formagasket. So got to chase after what the previous workmen have done to this thing. And you know, not everybody can be you can be a really, really good machinist, and I know some that aren't exactly good mechanics. You know, they can carve stuff out of metal just fine. But you know, like fixing things that are busted, they don't like doing stuff like that. And I understand. I kind of like the mechanics end of stuff too, and kind of it makes it all interesting, and especially repair work, working on different things all the time. I never liked manufacturing, and I learned that real fast back in the 70s. I went to work for a Chippo outfit over the Tri-Cities, and I ran a turret lathe for a month, and I decided I didn't like manufacturing. At the community college back in the 80s, they had instead of CNC back then, it was numerical control, and they had the typewriter that punched out the paper tape with holes in it and stuff like that. I didn't like that either, even though I had to learn a little bit about it. So I'm kind of more of a mechanic. I'm a fix-it guy. That's kind of what I like to be, and just repairing things, and it makes every day different, you know. And so, like, working on this old machine here is just, you know, par for the course, I guess. But that's how they did things 80 years ago, and it's amazing they had bearings of such precision. Now, the machine I had before this, that was a geared head lathe, was a Lodge and Shipley power turn made in about 1960. And it had the same kind of spindle arrangement and a lot more modern. And it had what it called a speed dial headstock, if you look at the power turn. And, you know, it was a good lathe, but all machines have their faults, you know. And but the one thing about that, you could really shift it fast. And I noticed on the Americans, you can shift them fast with their joystick type shifter and stuff like that. But this whole time thing here, it is hard to shift. But the gears in the Axelson is much more substantial than like the Lodge and Shipley. You know, it's heavier than that machine. I'm real familiar with that. The Americans are real interesting and the Axelson. At the time that they came up with them, they were the machines that were designed for high speed. You know, instead of all the gears sitting in the oil, foaming it up if you run them too fast, they had an oil pump and a sump system and pumped oil and onto the gears that are running fast and had the gears that run slow sitting down in the oil. Just a whole different design. This is really an interesting design and just a real solid machine. Though the research that I've done on these, now the manual online shows a machine about 1950 and stuff. And that machine, they actually added almost 1,000 pounds to, like the same machine here. This one here weighs like 4,300 pounds, and the later 14 by 30s weighed something like 5,200. So they added more weight and beefed them up. And I noticed on the cross slide here that they have 2 bolts holding down the top slide instead of 1, and beefed this stuff up a little bit. I think this casting's the same except for the base. And they just made stuff heavier. Just rambling on about this old lathe here, about how on later models they beef things up a bit. But anyway, this one is a very interesting machine, and I'm gonna snug those bearings up a little bit, and maybe I'll add that to this video. Okay, I'll shut this off for now and get set up to adjust that. Okay, I think you can see what I'm doing from here. I got this little set screw loose here, and I gotta mark this. I'm actually standing on the machine. I gotta step back here, and I'm gonna mark the nut location with the spindle shaft. I'm going to do it in a couple of spots just in case. Rub it off. Okay, that looks good. Okay, I got this set screw loose, I believe. And I removed it. It's got a little piece of brass that's set in the threads there. Let's see, I'll get this thing in gear. And maybe I can break that loose. Now what I want to do is get this nut loose first. My wrench is a little small. Okay. Oh, that's nice. Now I learned this from an old machine tool dealer named Bixby. Dick Bixby, years and years ago. Okay, I'm going to take that loose. Wipe that nice and clean. You see the little brass piece in there for the set screw. Little piece of brass there to keep this from rotating. Okay, now, where'd that go? It's right here. Now put a little spindle oil on here. I want it on the face, on those threads. On the face of that too. A little bit in there. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to put this back on. A little bit of debris right there. Yeah, it looks good. Get that back on. Nice quality threads, fit, nut, no shake. That's nice. Nicely made stuff. Okay, back to where those marks were. Okay, I'm going to put the wrench back on it. And I'm going to bring it back to those marks. Now I'm going to go past those marks. Quite a bit past. Snug that thing up good. Maybe this is a little bit more by guess than by gosh. But you know it works. So I'm going to, let me take this loose and I'll show you that I tightened it past the marks. And that's a pretty substantial amount. If you can see that, I hope you can. Let me see if I can see it through the camera. Yeah, you see that? A little bit offset there, see? Okay, now what I want to do now is move it back, but still have it tighter. Okay, so we're going to do that. And probably what I'll do is I'll split the difference. Now I'm going to take and put a mark where it is tight. Yeah. Do it on this side too. Okay, that's where it's tight. And it might not even be too tight, but we're going to work up to that. Now I'm going to back it off. Now I'm going to go back. Okay. And I'm going to split the difference. I'm going to call that pretty good. Maybe just a little more cushion. That thing's kind of hard on the hand. Okay, I'm going to try that. I kind of like the way that's looking. Maybe it's a little too much though. Let me see on this side. I think I actually think that's pretty good. I'm going to give it a try. And so what I'll do is I will tighten this lock nut or set screw. So it's right there. That should be plenty good. Okay, now I'm going to start the lathe up. Even though I got this stuff tore up on the carriage, I got it all that stuff and the gearbox shifted out. So just the spindle will run. So I'm going to start this thing up, run it for a while, and I want to feel slightly some warmth here. It didn't heat up at all. So before, this didn't get warm, but the front bearing got warm. So I'm going to go ahead and run it, and I'll show you the difference I split here. You see, there's the marks there. It was quite loose. It's ahead of where it was, but not quite tight. Okay, I'm going to give it just want to approach things. I'm going to start the lathe and run it, and I'm going to start it on a very slow speed. Okay, we'll be back. Okay, back here to do the scientific hammer test. So stick a hammer in there and give it a tug. Okay, I reduced that to less than 1/1000th deflection. It went from 2/1000 to, that's pretty, maybe 1/1000th at the most. So I'm going to run it for a while at that setting. Okay. Yeah. I was going to get a Morisiki lathe and a Bridgeport Series 2 special. And so I could fix all kinds of things. But I ended up getting this old Brown and Sharp Gracie milling machine, this Axelson, and that drill press that just about killed me. But I've got things under control. I had this traffic jam of this Axelson out there with that drill press, and I got the Axelson in here, and now I can move the drill press and all that, so I'm in a lot better shape here. But anyway, back on this Axelson, I've got the bearing snugged up, and I run it, at a pretty slow speed at 351, so real happy speed for the machine here. So I ran it at 351 for a while, forward and reverse, and it gets a little bit warm on the spindle end here. Then on the tail end, before it just stayed cold, and now it's just a little bit warm, like the front. So I'm gonna just leave it there, run the machine, do some cuts, and see if the surface finish improves, which I think it will. And I'm going to go ahead and put these parts that I have machined on the surface plate in a V-block and check the roundness. And it'll be nice to machine some metal again after this adjustment and see if there's an improvement there. But anyway, this Axelson is pretty cool. I'm going to start it up and show you the gear train in action. Okay, here we go. Okay, now I'm going to put it in gear. old-time lathes, you know, with that exposed gear train. Now, modern machines, like the modern 10EE, they put all this stuff in a small box, and it makes it harder to do changes, like cut metric threads and like that with these change gears. Now, as far as cutting metric threads, there's already a 120-tooth gear right here, driver gear, and it's 127 on the larger lathe. Okay, let's follow it. Goes through the gearbox here and into the apron. Okay, this is for that double gear. That's how it shifts. Okay, I'm going to load this video, and I think those bearings are going to come in. So I'll get this thing back together and have some more fun with it. Okay, bye.